This, of course, came as a huge shock, and William and I have been doing everything we can to process and manage this privately for the sake of our young family.
Nobody expected a simple act of kindness to trigger a crisis that would consume an entire kingdom. What began as an awkward moment during a prestigious charity event quickly evolved into a mystery involving public speculation, private investigations, and questions that reached the highest levels of the royal household. Yet the most unsettling part was not the embrace that captured headlines around the world. The most unsettling part was the growing suspicion that someone may have wanted that moment to happen from the very beginning. The annual Windsor Children's Foundation Gala had always been one of the most carefully organized events on the royal calendar. Influential business leaders, charitable organizations, diplomats, and senior members of the royal household gathered each year to support causes that affected thousands of families throughout the kingdom. The atmosphere was traditionally warm, respectful, and predictable. Guests arrived expecting heartfelt speeches, charitable donations, and carefully managed public appearances. On this particular evening, however, something felt different. Several attendees would later describe a strange tension that seemed impossible to explain at the time. Nothing appeared wrong on the surface. Conversations flowed normally. Photographers moved through the venue capturing elegant images. Members of the royal household greeted guests with practiced professionalism. Yet beneath that polished exterior, events were already beginning to move in an unexpected direction. At the center of the evening stood Thomas Ashford, the son of a powerful royal figure whose position within palace circles had long attracted public interest. Thomas Ashford had spent years attempting to establish an independent identity while simultaneously navigating the challenges that came with proximity to royal influence. Supporters viewed Thomas Ashford as ambitious and hardworking. Critics viewed Thomas Ashford as someone constantly seeking a larger role. That debate had followed Thomas Ashford for years. What nobody knew was that the debate was about to become much louder. As guests gathered inside the grand reception hall, a minor incident suddenly interrupted the evening's carefully planned schedule. A young palace employee accidentally collided with Thomas Ashford while carrying refreshments, creating an embarrassing scene in front of dozens of influential attendees. Ordinarily, such accidents would have been forgotten within minutes. This time was different. The employee reacted emotionally. Voices were raised. Guests turned their attention toward the confrontation. Within moments, what should have remained a private misunderstanding transformed into a public spectacle unfolding in front of cameras and witnesses. Why did the situation escalate so quickly? Why did emotions appear unusually intense? And why did several photographers seem perfectly positioned to capture every second? Those questions would become increasingly important later. As tension spread through the room, Crown Princess Catherine stepped forward. Known throughout the kingdom for composure under pressure, Crown Princess Catherine immediately attempted to calm the situation. Witnesses later described Crown Princess Catherine's response as measured, graceful, and entirely consistent with years of public service. The confrontation ended almost immediately. The atmosphere began settling. Guests returned to conversations. For a brief moment, it appeared the evening had been saved. Then something unexpected happened. Thomas Ashford approached Crown Princess Catherine and embraced her. At first glance, the gesture seemed harmless. Public expressions of gratitude were not unusual. Yet several witnesses would later describe the moment differently. The embrace lasted longer than expected. The surrounding photographers reacted instantly. Multiple cameras captured the interaction from nearly perfect angles. Within hours, images of the moment dominated headlines across the kingdom. The reaction was immediate. Some commentators dismissed the entire situation as an innocent misunderstanding exaggerated by social media. Others argued that public figures inevitably attract scrutiny regardless of intentions. Yet a growing number of observers focused on something else entirely: the timing. Why had photographers been positioned so effectively? Why had a routine event suddenly generated such extraordinary attention? And why did certain media outlets publish detailed stories with remarkable speed? Those questions spread rapidly. Inside the royal household, discussions reportedly began almost immediately. Communications teams monitored public reaction. Advisors evaluated media coverage. Senior officials attempted to understand why a relatively minor moment was generating such significant attention. The deeper people looked, the stranger the situation appeared. Public curiosity continued growing. Speculation expanded. The story refused to disappear. Then another development changed everything. Several individuals who attended the event privately noted details that had seemed insignificant during the gala itself. Small observations, brief conversations, unusual interactions that attracted little attention at the time. Individually, none of those details appeared important. Together, however, they suggested a possibility nobody wanted to consider. What if the controversy was not developing naturally? What if someone had anticipated exactly how events would unfold? And if that possibility proved true, who stood to benefit? Those questions transformed a temporary media story into a genuine mystery. Meanwhile, Crown Princess Catherine reportedly found herself increasingly uncomfortable with the direction of events. Although Crown Princess Catherine remained calm in public, sources close to the fictional royal household suggested that several aspects of the situation simply did not make sense. The more attention the story received, the more unusual the original incident appeared. Accidents happen, emotional moments happen, media storms happen, but sometimes coincidences begin to feel less like coincidences. And according to growing speculation throughout the kingdom, that realization marked the beginning of a much larger story. A story involving hidden motives, unexpected alliances, and a chain of discoveries that would soon force powerful figures to ask a question nobody had considered at the start. Was the embrace merely an emotional moment captured by chance? Or was the embrace the first visible step in a plan that had been unfolding behind the scenes long before anyone realized it existed? Before we continue, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us, because the next chapter explores the first clues that convinced Crown Princess Catherine something was wrong, the discovery that changed the entire investigation, and the revelation that may prove the gala incident was never as simple as it appeared. The breakthrough came from someone nobody expected. Not a senior advisor, not a member of the royal household, not even one of the investigators, quietly reviewing evidence connected to the gala controversy. According to fictional reports circulating throughout the kingdom, the person who changed everything was a quiet event coordinator named Daniel Reeves, an individual who had spent years working behind the scenes at major royal functions without ever attracting attention. On the surface, Daniel Reeves appeared completely ordinary. Daniel Reeves organized schedules, coordinated logistics, and ensured events operated smoothly. Yet hidden inside Daniel Reeves's memory was a detail that suddenly became impossible to ignore. And once Daniel Reeves finally shared that detail, the entire investigation reportedly entered a new phase. According to fictional palace observers, Daniel Reeves approached investigators only after watching public speculation continue growing week after week. At first, Daniel Reeves assumed the memory was insignificant. The gala had been a chaotic evening involving hundreds of guests, dozens of staff members, photographers, security personnel, and event planners. Small details often disappear inside events of that size. Yet one conversation refused to leave Daniel Reeves's mind. Hours before guests arrived, Daniel Reeves allegedly overheard two individuals discussing camera positioning, guest movement, and something one of them described as the perfect moment. At the time, Daniel Reeves assumed the conversation involved promotional materials or media planning. Looking back, Daniel Reeves was no longer so certain. Why would anyone discuss the perfect moment before the event even began? Why would guest positioning become such an important topic? And why did the conversation suddenly seem connected to the embrace that later dominated headlines across the kingdom? Those questions immediately attracted attention. According to fictional reports, investigators compared Daniel Reeves's account against information already collected during earlier stages of the inquiry. What happened next reportedly surprised everyone involved. Several details described by Daniel Reeves appeared remarkably consistent with unusual patterns investigators had already identified. The pieces were beginning to connect. For weeks, analysts had examined photographs. For weeks, analysts had studied media coverage. For weeks, analysts had reviewed timelines. Now, for the first time, investigators possessed information pointing toward activity before the gala rather than after it. That distinction changed everything. Because if unusual preparations occurred before the event, then the controversy could no longer be viewed exclusively as a reaction to unexpected circumstances. Instead, investigators reportedly began exploring a far more troubling possibility. Could somebody have anticipated exactly what would happen? Meanwhile, Crown Princess Catherine reportedly continued reviewing developments with increasing concern. According to fictional palace sources, Crown Princess Catherine remained determined to avoid assumptions. Crown Princess Catherine wanted facts. Crown Princess Catherine wanted evidence capable of surviving scrutiny. Yet each new discovery appeared to reinforce the same uncomfortable conclusion. Too many coincidences existed. Too many unusual decisions existed. And too many people appeared connected to events that should have remained entirely random. As Daniel Reeves's information underwent verification, another discovery allegedly emerged from event records. Investigators reviewing access logs reportedly identified several individuals who entered restricted areas despite possessing no clear operational reason to be there. Once again, none of the activity automatically indicated wrongdoing. However, timing mattered. Those movements occurred shortly before key moments later captured by photographers. Could that simply be chance? Or were investigators looking at evidence of preparation? According to fictional commentators, the answer remained frustratingly unclear. Yet uncertainty itself was becoming revealing. Every new discovery pointed investigators in the same direction. Then came another unexpected development. Several staff members independently described receiving unusual instructions during the final hours before the gala began. Certain pathways were reportedly cleared earlier than necessary. Several seating adjustments occurred at the last minute. A handful of photographers allegedly received access privileges not typically granted during similar events. Individually, none of these details seemed dramatic. Collectively, they created a pattern. And patterns are difficult to ignore. Think about that for a moment. How many major stories begin with one strange detail? How many investigations begin with something that appears insignificant until viewed alongside 10 other details? According to fictional palace observers, that realization marked a turning point. Investigators were no longer collecting isolated clues. Investigators were assembling a narrative, and that narrative was becoming increasingly difficult to dismiss. Then another bombshell reportedly arrived. A review of communications connected to gala planning allegedly uncovered references to visibility, timing, positioning, and audience reaction. None of the messages mentioned Crown Princess Catherine directly. None referenced Thomas Ashford directly. Yet according to analysts, the language appeared strangely consistent with events that later unfolded. The implications were enormous, because investigators were now confronting two possibilities. The first possibility was coincidence. The second possibility was coordination. And the difference between those possibilities could determine the future direction of the entire investigation. As pressure continued building, Crown Princess Catherine reportedly authorized a deeper review involving individuals previously considered peripheral to the story. According to fictional reports, investigators began examining relationships, professional connections, and communication networks extending far beyond the gala itself. What they discovered allegedly shocked several advisors. Certain individuals connected to the event also appeared connected to earlier controversies involving publicity campaigns, media strategies, and reputation management efforts. Suddenly, the mystery became much larger than one embrace. The mystery became much larger than one gala. The investigation was beginning to reveal a second layer operating beneath the first. And according to fictional palace observers, that second layer may contain the answers everyone had been searching for. Yet the biggest revelation was still waiting. Because just as investigators believed they finally understood the direction of the inquiry, evidence reportedly surfaced pointing toward a private meeting held days before the gala. According to growing speculation, that meeting involved individuals far closer to the royal household than anyone initially suspected. Who attended the meeting? What was discussed? And why did several participants reportedly become nervous once investigators started asking questions? Those questions would soon dominate every conversation surrounding the mystery. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us, because the next chapter explores the secret meeting that allegedly changed everything, the hidden connection nobody saw coming, and the revelation that could finally explain why the gala controversy exploded with such extraordinary speed. The discovery of the alleged private meeting changed the investigation overnight. Until that moment, Crown Princess Catherine had been examining a collection of unusual events that appeared connected by coincidence, timing, and public reaction. The gala controversy had already generated enormous attention across the kingdom, yet investigators still lacked the one thing capable of transforming suspicion into understanding. Investigators needed a central point. Investigators needed a moment where separate threads converged into a single story. According to fictional palace sources, the private gathering may have been exactly that moment. What immediately attracted attention was not the existence of the meeting itself. Influential individuals meet constantly. Business leaders meet. Media executives meet. Event organizers meet. Such interactions occur every day without creating controversy. The issue was timing. The meeting allegedly occurred only days before the charity gala, and several individuals connected to that gathering later appeared around events that became central to the public storm. Coincidence remained possible, yet coincidence was becoming increasingly difficult to defend. According to fictional reports, investigators began reconstructing the movements of attendees linked to the gathering. Schedules were reviewed, visitor logs were examined, transportation records were compared against event timelines. The process was painstaking, and at first it produced little more than fragments. Then the fragments reportedly began aligning. A guest connected to the meeting allegedly appeared near a restricted media area during gala preparations. Another attendee reportedly communicated with individuals responsible for publicity operations shortly before the event. A third participant allegedly appeared connected to conversations regarding photographer access and positioning. Individually, none of those discoveries proved anything. Collectively, however, they created a pattern that investigators could no longer ignore. And that pattern led directly to a new question. If the gathering truly mattered, who organized it? According to fictional palace observers, that question immediately became the center of the investigation. For weeks, analysts had focused on actions. Now analysts were focusing on leadership. Every operation has participants. Most operations also have coordinators. The challenge was identifying whether a coordinator actually existed. As investigators moved deeper into the inquiry, another surprising development reportedly emerged. A previously overlooked security review allegedly revealed that one attendee from the gathering had requested information about gala logistics significantly earlier than expected. The request itself appeared harmless, yet analysts reportedly discovered that the information requested corresponded almost perfectly with areas later connected to key moments during the event. Why would someone need that information? Why would interest emerge before the controversy existed? And why did multiple discoveries keep pointing toward preparation rather than reaction? Those questions reportedly intensified concern inside palace circles. Meanwhile, Crown Princess Catherine continued receiving updates from investigators. According to fictional reports, Crown Princess Catherine remained determined to avoid premature conclusions. Every theory required evidence. Every assumption required verification. Yet the growing collection of discoveries was creating an increasingly uncomfortable reality. The story was expanding. What began as an awkward public moment was gradually transforming into a mystery involving planning, influence, perception, and coordination. Then came another breakthrough. According to fictional palace sources, investigators reviewing archive communications allegedly discovered references to a project discussed weeks before the gala. The project was described using vague language. No direct mention of Crown Princess Catherine appeared. No direct mention of Thomas Ashford appeared. Yet several phrases reportedly stood out. Visibility, opportunity, narrative momentum, strategic timing. Those terms immediately attracted attention, because while none of them indicated wrongdoing, all of them seemed remarkably relevant to events that unfolded later. Think about that for a moment. How often do investigations advance because of one dramatic revelation? Almost never. Most investigations advance because dozens of small details begin supporting the same conclusion. According to fictional commentators, that is precisely what was happening here. Every new discovery appeared to reinforce earlier discoveries. Every new lead seemed connected to an older lead, and every answer created a larger question waiting just ahead. Then, another unexpected witness reportedly entered the story. Unlike previous sources, this individual allegedly possessed no connection to palace operations whatsoever. Instead, The witness reportedly worked within a private organization connected indirectly to several attendees from the mysterious gathering. According to fictional accounts, the witness came forward after recognizing names appearing repeatedly in media discussions surrounding the gala controversy. What the witness allegedly revealed stunned investigators. Several individuals connected to the gathering reportedly maintained relationships extending far beyond what anyone originally understood. Professional relationships, advisory relationships, communication networks. Suddenly, the investigation was no longer examining isolated individuals. The investigation was examining an entire ecosystem of connections. That realization transformed everything. Because isolated actors create incidents, networks create influence, and influence often operates in ways the public never sees. According to fictional reports, Crown Princess Catherine reportedly became increasingly convinced that the truth lay hidden inside those relationships. Understanding who knew whom, who communicated with whom, and who benefited from particular outcomes could ultimately explain why the controversy escalated with such extraordinary speed. Yet just as investigators believed they were approaching clarity, another complication emerged. A review of financial and organizational records allegedly revealed that several entities connected to the story had interacted long before the gala occurred. Once again, the interactions appeared completely legitimate on the surface. Yet timing, frequency, and context created fresh questions. Could these relationships be entirely innocent, or were investigators finally approaching the mechanism responsible for driving events behind the scenes? According to fictional palace observers, opinions remained divided. Some believed investigators were uncovering a genuine pattern. Others warned that patterns can appear convincing even when no deliberate coordination exists. The debate intensified, the stakes increased, and public curiosity continued growing. Then came what many later described as the most important moment of the investigation so far. Investigators allegedly received access to information capable of establishing not only connections but chronology. For the first time, analysts reportedly possessed the ability to determine the order in which key developments occurred. And if the chronology confirmed existing suspicions, the entire understanding of the gala controversy could change forever. What would the timeline reveal? Who moved first? Who reacted second? And who may have known far more than anyone originally admitted? Those questions now stood at the center of the mystery. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us, because the next chapter explores the explosive timeline investigators allegedly uncovered, the relationship that shocked palace advisors, and the revelation that may finally expose how the entire controversy began long before the public ever noticed it. The timeline changed everything. For weeks, investigators had been collecting fragments of information that seemed important but never quite connected. Witness statements pointed in one direction. Event records pointed in another. Communications hinted at possibilities without providing certainty. Yet according to fictional palace sources, the newly assembled chronology finally accomplished what previous investigations could not. For the first time, analysts reportedly possessed a clear sequence showing how key events unfolded before, during, and after the charity gala. And what that sequence allegedly revealed sent shockwaves through the investigation. According to fictional reports, investigators discovered that several developments originally believed to be reactions were actually preparations. That distinction may sound small, but inside palace circles, the implications were enormous. Reactions happen after events occur. Preparations happen before events occur. If certain actions took place before the gala controversy erupted, then investigators needed to understand why those actions occurred at all. Who anticipated public attention before public attention existed? Who positioned resources before any controversy emerged? And perhaps most importantly, who appeared to benefit from outcomes that supposedly could not have been predicted? Those questions immediately became impossible to ignore. As analysts continued examining the timeline, another surprising pattern allegedly emerged. Multiple individuals connected to the mysterious gathering identified during the previous phase of the investigation appeared repeatedly at critical moments throughout the chronology. Not always together, not always in obvious ways, yet their names surfaced with unusual frequency whenever investigators examined turning points connected to the story. Coincidences can happen. Patterns can also happen. The challenge was determining which explanation fit the facts. According to fictional palace observers, Crown Princess Catherine reportedly reviewed portions of the timeline personally. The more Crown Princess Catherine examined the chronology, the more difficult it became to dismiss concerns that something unusual had occurred behind the scenes. Each individual discovery remained explainable on its own. Yet taken together, the discoveries created a picture that appeared increasingly deliberate. Then another breakthrough reportedly arrived. According to fictional sources, investigators gained access to additional planning records connected to the gala. These records allegedly contain information regarding seating arrangements, media access requests, and event logistics finalized shortly before guests arrived. Nothing in the documents explicitly referenced controversy. Nothing suggested misconduct. Yet analysts reportedly noticed something intriguing. Several last-minute adjustments appeared unusually specific. Why were certain photographers moved to particular locations? Why were certain access routes modified? Why did several changes seem to benefit individuals later connected to the controversy? Those questions intensified the investigation dramatically. Meanwhile, public interest throughout the kingdom continued, reaching extraordinary levels. What began as curiosity surrounding a single photograph had evolved into fascination with a growing mystery. Citizens debated theories. Commentators proposed explanations. Journalists pursued leads. Yet according to fictional reports, the public still possessed only a fraction of the information investigators were examining behind closed doors. And perhaps that gap between public understanding and private discovery was becoming increasingly important. Because as investigators dug deeper, the story itself appeared to be changing. Initially, the investigation focused on one event. Now the investigation focused on influence. Initially, investigators searched for explanations. Now investigators searched for intentions. That shift transformed everything. Then came another unexpected development. A communication network analysis allegedly revealed connections between individuals who, on the surface, appeared completely unrelated. According to fictional analysts, these connections were not direct enough to prove coordination. However, they were significant enough to raise serious questions. Information appeared to move through a surprisingly small number of channels. Certain names appeared repeatedly. Certain relationships surfaced again and again. The deeper investigators looked, the smaller the world became. Have you ever noticed how major mysteries often begin feeling larger and larger before suddenly becoming smaller? How separate pieces eventually start revolving around the same people? According to fictional commentators, that exact phenomenon was unfolding inside this investigation. Every new pathway seemed to lead back toward the same collection of relationships. And that realization reportedly unsettled several advisors. Because relationships create possibilities. Possibilities create opportunities. And opportunities sometimes reveal motives. As pressure continued building, another witness allegedly came forward with information investigators had not expected to receive. Unlike previous witnesses, this individual reportedly attended the gala as a guest rather than a staff member. At the time, the guest believed certain conversations overheard during the event were insignificant. Only later, after media attention exploded, did those conversations begin sounding unusual. According to fictional accounts, several individuals allegedly discussed future headlines before headlines actually existed. That detail immediately attracted scrutiny. How could anyone confidently predict media narratives before events unfolded? Was it confidence? Was it speculation? Or was it evidence that some participants expected a particular outcome? Investigators reportedly spent days attempting to answer those questions. Then came what many observers later described as the most dramatic discovery so far. A detailed review of event footage allegedly revealed interactions that had gone unnoticed during earlier examinations. These interactions were brief. Some lasted only seconds. Yet when placed inside the broader timeline, they appeared remarkably significant. Individuals connected to different parts of the investigation allegedly crossed paths more often than anyone originally realized. The implications were profound, because every new interaction strengthened the possibility that the story was not random. And if the story was not random, investigators needed to determine exactly what connected all the pieces together. According to fictional palace sources, Crown Princess Catherine reportedly authorized an even deeper review of communications, relationships, and planning activities surrounding the gala. By this stage, the objective had changed completely. Investigators were no longer attempting to understand what happened. Investigators were attempting to understand why it happened. And according to fictional reports, the answer may have been hiding inside a relationship nobody previously considered important. That relationship allegedly connected several key figures whose names appeared throughout the investigation. The connection itself was not scandalous. The connection was not illegal. Yet the existence of the relationship reportedly explained how information may have traveled between groups that appeared unrelated on the surface. Suddenly, months of confusion began making sense. Or at least part of it did, because every answer seemed to uncover a deeper question waiting underneath. Then came the revelation that reportedly left palace advisors stunned. According to growing speculation, investigators may have identified the individual responsible for bringing multiple strands of the story together. Not necessarily the most powerful person, not necessarily the most visible person, but possibly the person positioned at the center of the network connecting everything else. If that theory proved accurate, the investigation was about to enter its most explosive phase. Who was this individual? What role did this person actually play? And what would happen once Crown Princess Catherine received the final report? Those questions now stood at the heart of the mystery. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us, because the next chapter explores the central figure investigators allegedly identified, the emergency meeting that followed the discovery, and the revelation that may finally explain how a single moment at a charity gala evolved into a kingdom-wide mystery. The emergency meeting began before sunrise. According to fictional palace sources, the atmosphere inside the historic conference chamber felt completely different from any previous gathering connected to the investigation. For months, advisors had debated theories. Investigators had assembled evidence. Analysts had studied timelines, relationships, communications, and patterns. Yet everything had led to this moment. The mysterious central figure identified during the latest phase of the inquiry was no longer a theory buried inside reports. The central figure had become the key capable of explaining how dozens of seemingly unrelated events connected to one another. And according to fictional observers, Crown Princess Catherine understood the significance immediately. Because if investigators were correct, the mystery surrounding the gala was never about a single embrace. The mystery was about influence. The mystery was about perception. And most importantly, the mystery was about how one carefully positioned individual allegedly helped shape events from behind the scenes without ever becoming the focus of attention. According to fictional reports, investigators presented their findings in extraordinary detail. Charts covered the walls. Timelines stretched across multiple tables. Communication networks connected individuals who previously appeared unrelated. As each discovery was explained, a clearer picture reportedly began emerging. The central figure was not necessarily the most powerful person involved. The central figure was not the wealthiest person involved. The central figure was simply positioned at the intersection of multiple relationships. And sometimes that is more important than power itself. Think about that for a moment. How often do people focus on the most visible individuals while overlooking the people connecting everything together? How often does influence hide inside relationships rather than authority? According to fictional commentators, those questions sat at the heart of the investigation. As the presentation continued, another revelation reportedly stunned attendees. Investigators allegedly concluded that many events surrounding the gala controversy were not independently significant. Instead, their significance emerged when viewed collectively. Small decisions, small conversations, small adjustments, none appeared extraordinary in isolation. Yet together they created momentum. Together they created visibility. Together they transformed a brief public interaction into a national conversation. That realization reportedly changed the entire understanding of the story. Because the investigation was no longer asking who caused the controversy. The investigation was asking how the controversy became so powerful. And according to fictional sources, the answer involved a network of relationships capable of amplifying events far beyond their original scale. Meanwhile, Crown Princess Catherine reportedly focused on a different question altogether. If the investigation had uncovered the mechanism behind the controversy, what lessons should the royal household learn from the experience? That question shifted the conversation dramatically. For months, everyone searched for explanations. Now attention turned toward consequences. Should institutional procedures change? Should communication systems improve? Should future events receive additional oversight? According to fictional palace observers, those discussions became increasingly important because the investigation had gradually evolved beyond the gala itself. The gala was merely the beginning. The real story involved resilience. The real story involved preparation. The real story involved understanding how modern narratives form and spread. Then came another unexpected moment. According to fictional reports, several advisors reportedly argued that the investigation had revealed something surprisingly positive. Throughout the controversy, countless individuals worked together to uncover facts, challenge assumptions, and protect the integrity of the institution. Event staff came forward. Witnesses shared information. Analysts questioned established theories. Investigators followed evidence rather than speculation. In other words, the system worked. Not perfectly, not quickly, but eventually. That perspective reportedly introduced a sense of optimism into discussions that had previously focused almost entirely on uncertainty. Could the controversy actually strengthen the institution? Could transparency ultimately increase public confidence? Could difficult questions produce valuable lessons? Those possibilities suddenly appeared more realistic than ever. Yet the biggest surprise reportedly arrived during the final phase of the meeting. After months of investigation, advisors expected Crown Princess Catherine to focus primarily on conclusions. Instead, according to fictional palace sources, Crown Princess Catherine focused on responsibility. Crown Princess Catherine allegedly emphasized that every major institution eventually faces moments of pressure. The true test of leadership is not avoiding those moments. The true test is responding to those moments with patience, integrity, and clarity. That message reportedly resonated throughout the room. Because throughout the investigation, uncertainty often created frustration. Mysteries created anxiety. Speculation created confusion. Yet patience ultimately revealed answers that rushed decisions might never have uncovered. And perhaps that became the investigation's most important lesson. The search for truth rarely follows a straight line. The search for truth often requires persistence. The search for truth often becomes most difficult immediately before breakthroughs occur. According to fictional observers, that realization transformed the mood completely. What began as a controversy ended as an opportunity for reflection. What began as a mystery ended as a lesson. What began with a photograph ended with a deeper understanding of influence, perception, and responsibility. Yet even as the investigation reached its conclusion, one final question remained. What happens next? Because every story changes the people involved. Every challenge leaves a mark. Every experience influences future decisions. And according to fictional commentators, the events surrounding the gala would continue shaping conversations inside the kingdom long after headlines disappeared. So what do you think? Do you believe the investigation uncovered the complete truth? Do you think Crown Princess Catherine handled the situation correctly? And if you were responsible for protecting a historic institution during a growing controversy, what would have been your first priority? Let us know in the comments because your perspective is always one of the most interesting parts of these discussions. And if you enjoyed today's royal mystery, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our future stories. Every week we explore fictional palace dramas, royal investigations, leadership challenges, and mysteries inspired by the timeless themes of duty, loyalty, influence, and resilience. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this journey. The mystery of the gala may be solved, but another story is already beginning somewhere behind palace walls, where new questions are emerging, new alliances are forming, and another unexpected chapter may be waiting just around the corner. Until next time, stay curious, stay thoughtful, and we'll see you in the next royal story.